Desert rats. I had been trying to dump Jerry for 3 weeks. The apartment manager, Ruby, promoted what little developed of our dalliance when I had just moved in. At her encouragement, he stopped by, introducing himself as a nice Jewish boy, though he was in fact 43. We started sleeping together because I was new in Vegas and had been lonely before I arrived, and he was chubby and impossible to anger because even the harshest criticism he met with choked laughter. "Hi, hun," he said when I opened the door. "Don't call me hun," I said, and he laughed. "Hey, I need your help for a second. I was feeding Millicent and the rat got away. I need you to hold the bag while I chase the rat into it." He handed me a torn plastic sack from the nearest chain supermarket. A smile parted his chubby cheeks, which were framed by sharp Elvis sideburns. He had dealt blackjack and craps at second-rate off-strip casinos for over 10 years. "You want me to hold a bag while you chase a rat into it?" He laughed. "You make it sound so unpleasant." I closed the door, and he knocked again, and I held my breath. "Hon, I hate rats, I'm working, and please don't knock on my door anymore." "Okay, bye," he said to the peephole, adding in a hopeful sing-song, "Talk to you later." I had moved into the Desert Rose my first day in Las Vegas, lured by a teaching position at one of the city's understaffed schools. My latest relationship had ended badly, and I was fed up with the packed SEPTA buses in Philadelphia's snow. In August, I retrieved my dented silica from my brother's backyard in upstate New York and drove for 4 days, windows down, sweltering as I crossed the Mojave. The tangle of highways and mid-morning glare obscured my view of the pyramids and skyscrapers that rose from the strip as I cruised off of Frank Sinatra. In a palm-lined neighborhood close to the Wynn, I met Ruby at the end of the 110-degree day, when all my internet leads on apartments proved sleazy or over my budget. Tucked away on a sleepy cul-de-sac, the Desert Rose with its Hollywood bungalows, manicured palm trees, and turquoise pools evoked Las Vegas's heyday, an image that Ruby, with her magenta hair and shell earrings, was eager to foster. "Sammy Davis Jr. stayed right next door," she told me with pride, adding more equivocally. "The rest of the rat pack were, on the strip. This was back in the 60s. The rent on a roomy one-bedroom was half what I paid for my studio in Philly, with a view of a snow-covered dumpster. That first evening, the air thick with night-blooming jasmine, I lay on a lounge chair next to the kidney-shaped pool, watching the sun drop over the rust-colored mountains. In the 4 months since I'd moved in the Desert Rose, my license plates had been stolen, my back window busted, and bullets had punctured my tires. I'd learned that the lounge chairs next to the pool were treadmills for cockroaches. The laundromat up the street a campground for crackheads. My brief stay in the city had taught me one long-term residents knew all too well, that Vegas was a stopping point on the road to shame or despair, with only one exit: escape. The minute of talking with Jerry had filled my apartment with heat. I turned on the AC and hunched at my desk with my folder of essays. A rattling noise startled me out of my chair. "Hello?" I jumped. I still wasn't used to my cell phone, which jangled and throbbed like a wounded ferret each time it rang. "Amy?" I recognized the quavering tone of Olivia Jones, the first teacher I had met at the school. With her mousy brown hair, sloped gait, and faded skirt, she resembled a potted plant that had gone too long without water. I gave her a lift home from school after watching her hobble and squint in the harsh desert sun. Since then, she'd become an unwelcome attachment, persistently copping rides to the grocery store and Walgreens with unending stories of woe. "I'm so glad I caught you. I didn't know who else to call." "What's up?" Her voice was more strained than normal. "Well, I have an emergency. Everett is really sick. I think he might be in a coma." I swallowed, a bilious feeling crawling up my throat, wondering if she had a child or partner she hadn't mentioned. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Well, I really need a ride to the vet. It isn't far from your place." "Oh," I said, relieved, but still apprehensive. "Everett, your dog?" There was a moment of silence, followed by a tight, "No." "He's your cat?" "No." "He isn't a snake. He's a rat," she said with a tone of defiance. "A rat? Well, he's a rat. He's very tame." Her voice became shrill, choked by muffled tears. "Well, he's on his back, and I think he's in a coma. I can see his tail twitch. Oh, well, I've been kind of, I'm not..." It was no use. I was out of practice with women like Olivia. If they'd existed in Philadelphia, they'd never entered my orbit. "I don't want him to die. I mean, can you please come quick?" "All right," I said, grabbing my purse and double-locking my door. On my way down, I saw Jerry bent in a cactus scooping with his plastic bag. The drive to Olivia's apartment was less than a mile, but took 15 minutes. Built on a grid, Vegas blocks were controlled by traffic lights set on uneven timers. Each block I drove, I slowed for yellow as neighboring drivers pressed on their gas, speeding through red lights as jaywalkers ran for their lives. When I arrived at the Palm 3 apartments near the corner of Maryland Parkway, I saw Olivia, wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the sun, clutching a small metal cage. "You're my angel," she said as I opened the door. "I can drop you off at the vet's and then I have to run." "Oh, thank you so much." She sat with the cage in her lap. "You're really my angel." On the drive to the vet, past the 99-cent stores, gas stations, and off-strip casinos, I did my best to ignore the cage. But Olivia's anxious prattle didn't let me forget it was there. "Well, I noticed 2 days ago that he wasn't eating as much. Then he had diarrhea, and I figured it was just a stomach virus. Then his tail, which is normally pink, started to look gray, and it kind of had these tiny little bald spots. Up here on the right?" "Yes. Well, then I noticed he was sleeping more, not just napping, but really passed out. And then when he turned on his side, I just knew. The last rat I had got liver cancer, but it started out really differently. His eyes kind of glazed, and he developed this vomiting reflex. This must be the street over here. Yes, that's it. Well," I pulled to a stop. "My angel." It took Olivia several minutes to get out of the car while a man in a pickup truck held down his horn and sped yelling, "Cunt!" at my window. "It's hard to get this cage out," Olivia said, struggling to raise herself on to the oil-stained asphalt. With my serrated disc, "Good luck," I said as she hobbled onto the curb. On my drive back towards my apartment, my cell phone erupted into its jangling screed, startling me so much I nearly sideswiped a Chrysler. I fumbled for it at the first yellow light. "Hi, Amy, it's me." Jonathan was my best friend in Las Vegas. He had dated my roommate, Luciana, in college, who'd moved to France, studied block printing, and married a timpanist. We saw each other at a college reunion, and later I'd heard that he had become a history professor at UNLV, a fact I confirmed on his Facebook. My first week in town, we met over coffee at the MGM Grand, and since then spent hours swapping memories of college and commiserating about our lousy love lives and Las Vegas. Even in the din of rush hour, I could tell by his tone that something was wrong. "I got bad news." "Oh, I'm sorry, Jonathan." I said, though in this world bad news could mean anything from the death of a relative to the cancellation of his favorite TV show. Jonathan, I'm in the middle of traffic." "Well, you answered the phone." Shamed by his logic, I swallowed. "Well, that's true. I'm calling from Austin." "All right, just a sec." A woman in a dented Hyundai behind me was honking her horn. A few seconds later, she pressed on the gas and sped past, yelling, "Bitch!" I turned and slammed on my brakes to avoid a homeless man tied to his cart with Christmas ribbon and pulled into the crowded parking lot of a Mexican restaurant. Mina's tour was postponed. She's coming home early. Mina was Jonathan's Bombay-born roommate and landlord, owner of the luxurious 4-bedroom house in a gated community where they both lived. A belly dancer. She let Jonathan stay in the house while she went on tour in exchange for modest rent and light housekeeping. She'd asked him to move the last time she returned from Dubai to find the bathroom untidy and wood ants infesting the kitchen, but somehow they worked it all out. "Do you still need me to water the plants?" "Yeah, but that's not why I'm calling. Remember I told you that twice when I was sitting at my desk in the living room I saw a mouse run by the dining room table?" "Yes." "Well, when I left, I set a trap in the kitchen." "Good thinking, Jonathan. Well, I need you to go over there and empty the trap." I watched the homeless man now wrapping the ribbon around his chest and pulling his cart like an ox. "Please tell me you're joking." "Amy!" His tone became sharp. If Mina comes home and sees a dead mouse in her kitchen, I will be gone. Do you understand? I will be kicked out, evicted. I can't afford to move right now in the middle of the semester. I'm behind on all my 17th century stuff as it is. Jonathan, I said, my throat constricting, I really don't know if I could. Isn't there somebody else that you can call? His tone became gentler. Well, I wish there was, but you're my best friend in Las Vegas and the only person with keys to the house. I'm so sorry, Anne, but I need you. I need you to do this. I looked out over Maryland Parkway, the traffic lurching through lights at the end of each strip mall. Cars tailed each other, fighting to get into Target and In-N-Out Burger. A woman made a run across the street as an SUV swerved to avoid her. Amy? I sighed. All right. Oh, thank you so much. You really are a lifesaver. We'll go out for Thai food when I get back. It took me more than an hour to get to Jonathan's house. Home to Mormons and doctors, Henderson's gated communities offered Vegas wage earners at least the mirage of safety and middle-class values. Just 4 exits outside of the city, beneath carved sandy hills, rode endless cul-de-sacs of boxy identical homes, a frightening triumph of architectural cloning. Jonathan's house, even with his hand-drawn map, wasn't easy to find. With no landmarks and nothing to distinguish one street from the next, I drove in circles until luck and the process of elimination led me to the electric gate that accepted his 4-digit code. Once inside, I scanned the rows of white houses with manicured lawns and plastic yard toys until I found 3257. I opened the series of locks and entered the house. Faux East Asian crafts, an elephant card table, tiger head mirror, a Buddha plant holder, and 8-armed Shiva coat rack decorated the white walls and wood-covered floors. I stepped into the kitchen and saw in dimness the trap, empty, half sideways, on the tile floor. It was a relief not to see the dead mouse, but Jonathan's recent text, "Pint bitter or cheese, thanks," meant that he expected me to bait the trap and come back. I opened the jet black refrigerator, surprisingly well stocked for people who spent so much time out of town, and scanned shelves lined with Whole Earth and Trader Joe's sauces, spreads, olives, salad dressings, and cheese. I chose a half-empty package of Swiss, turned on the kitchen light, and knelt down near the trap. On the highway back to the city in the crushing afternoon sun, I got a phone call. "Amy, it's me, Olivia. Good news." He was severely dehydration. They hooked him up to an IV and they're releasing him. That's great. Poor little guy. I'm carrying him right now. He's attached to this huge bag of fluids. They're trying to get his electrolytes up. I take the bus, but it's really difficult to manage the cage and his IV. Olivia, I'm at my friend Jonathan's way out in Henderson. He's kind of like sort of in a crisis. I would stay at this homeless shelter around the corner, but they don't take pets. I take a cab, and I'm having this problem with my ATM. Well, I met Olivia on the corner of Maryland Parkway. She was holding the cage in one hand and a clear plastic sack filled with pale yellow fluid in the other. "You're really my angel." She hoisted herself into the car, struggling not to let the tube from Everett's IV get caught in the door. I dropped her off at the Palm 3 apartments just as rush hour started. When I pulled into the Desert Rose, it was just after 6 and the autumn sun was already setting. Tucked into my door was a folded note with a hand-drawn heart and message. "Come by, I miss you. Miss Millicent misses you." I crumpled it up, locked my door, and cranked up the AC. The next morning, I snuck out of the Desert Rose early, hoping to avoid Jerry, who returned from his shift about the same time that I was leaving for school. At work, I steered clear of the teacher's lounge and the mailroom, sneaking lunch in my car at the In-N-Out Burger. As soon as 6th period ended, I made a beeline for the parking lot and hightailed it for Henderson, pulling up to Jonathan's house just after hour. I opened the door, felt the cool of the AC, and turned to the kitchen, bracing myself for an unpleasant sight. Instead, I stared at the floor. The Swiss cheese was gone, the trap, a few inches left of where I had placed it, was set, and licked clean. From the refrigerator, I took a jar of organic chunky peanut butter. I stirred the hard paste, seeped in thick oil, and carefully scraped it beneath the trap's metal spring. I reset the trap, washed the spoon, watered the plants, and locked the door behind me on my way out. Returning to the desert rose late that afternoon, I looked forward to nothing more than a shower, a cold Diet Coke, and 2 hours of grading so that I could watch my favorite show on TV. Instead, I arrived at my door just as Jerry, hair slicked back, in black sunglasses and a shapeless red uniform, was walking towards my apartment. "Look who the cat dragged in. I'm just getting home, Jerry. There's no cat and I'm not getting dragged." He laughed, pulling his left hand from behind his back. "Not you, him." He presented me with a stuffed animal that bore, at first look, a passing resemblance to Mickey Mouse, though closer inspection revealed it to be the mascot of his casino, Hideous Owl. "Oh, thanks." I opened my door. "Can I come in? I have grading to do." "Well, how about later?" "I don't think so." "You're acting like I'm a pariah," he said, pronouncing it like piranha. "Jerry, I don't—" "We slept together. We made love." I turned my head quickly, fearing that anyone, even a crackhead, might hear it. "Please be quiet. Come over tonight. Jerry, come over tonight." He took my hand and bent down on his right knee, which made a horrible cracking sound. "Ouch, I need a chiropractor." The layers nearest this part were lacquered with grease. "Just this time, please. You won't regret it." Well, I did end up at Jerry's that evening, but only because my favorite show was on HBO and I didn't have cable. We both sat on his bed. He had no room for a couch. And when the show finished, his hands slid over to fondle my legs. I stood up. "Oh, stay. I have peppermint lotion." "I can't." "Call me," I heard him say as I shut the door. When I got back to my apartment, the light on my answering machine was blinking wildly. I pressed the button to hear the first message. "Oh, hi, Amy. This is Olivia Jones. I didn't see you at school today." Good news about Everett. He's doing much better. He's looking a lot like his old self. Tomorrow he gets his IV out. I don't know what you're doing tomorrow after school, but please call me. This is Olivia Jones. Bye. I pressed the erase button. I'd have to avoid this teacher's room yet again. The machine beeped and the next message played. "Amy, hi, it's Jonathan. How are you? Did you get the mouse? Is he dead? Was it awful? I just want to tell you I am so glad that I had you there to take care of it. I really don't know what I would have done without you. I hope it wasn't too bad for you. Call me. Hope you're doing well. Bye." Jonathan's tone was loose, as if he had a few beers. I crawled into bed without taking off my shirt or socks. The next day at school was the worst I'd had in Las Vegas. I sent the third of the class out with slips to the principal and put another third in detention. The remaining students text-messaged all through my lecture. My fellow teachers blamed discipline issues on the dearth of state taxes, but I knew the problem lay with the students themselves. In a city of poker tournaments, get-rich-quick machines, and millionaire bartenders, they saw zero financial incentive to slogging through of mice and men. When I arrived at Jonathan's house, I took a deep breath before turning my eyes to the floor. The trap was upside down. A few inches from where I had placed it, and again it was licked clean. I sank to a squat in despair, my elbows jamming my knees. I fingered my cell phone, dreading letting Jonathan know I had failed to do what he'd asked. I thought about asking Jerry for help, but knew that I'd pay for the favor. I started dialing Olivia Jones, but figured her only input would be search and rescue. Meanwhile, Mina was due back the following day. Within 20 minutes, I found myself cruising identical side streets in search of a grocery store. Despite its pretensions, Henderson wasn't middle of America. Next to a Church of Latter-day Saints, a Liberace impersonator was walking his poodle. Outside the Minot's auto repair, two scruffy, barely clad hobos were dueling with a car antenna. A cop was writing a ticket to a young woman whose lime green VW Bug had crashed into a palm tree outside of Denny's. I pulled into the parking lot of a large mini-mart and hurried in past a row of smoky men playing video poker. Near the canned cat food in the back of the store, I picked up a bag full of mousetraps. At the checkout counter, a long-haired teen in Trent Reznor t-shirt was ladling bright orange cheese. I ordered a small tub of nachos, which slid back and forth on the passenger seat as I drove. At Jonathan's place, after baiting 6 traps with a combination of nachos, tabbouleh, peanut butter, and hummus, I went out to the patio, a bumpy parquet of cut rock, cement, and dry grass. Below, Rocky Mountains beyond were cast in a dull sheen of sunset and haze. Beige, identical one-story homes flanked the yard. In its spareness, the desert night was like winter in Philly. My feeling of imminent failure, just as familiar. It was on such a night that I had watched my last dinner with Charles unfurl and collapse like an imploded casino. If I were honest, it had been several months I'd been sensing that something between us was off. But the feeling settled like a lump in my throat, strangling the words I might have used to express it. Like a criminal, resigned to my sentence, I tiptoed around, dreading the jig would be up. I know if I'd spoken up sooner, we might not have lasted. But at least I wouldn't have felt like the only one who'd been left. The sky outside Mina's was speckled and gray now, the strobe of the Luxor refracting the lights of the Strip. The pedestrians who'd survived the glare of the sun trick at 6 would be sprinting at every green light in the hopes of making it home before dark. I despaired of my next day of work, of Olivia Jones, of telling Jonathan I had not caught the mouse, and most of all avoiding Jerry on my way home. I went to the couch and covered my face with a pillow. The snapping sound was so distinct it called me out from the depths of sleep. I slammed my feet to the floor, switched on the overhead lamp, and ran to the kitchen. The trap near the sink was flipped upside down and totally still, the tail leaking out from behind. I ran to my car and dug out an oil-stained towel from my trunk. Rushing back to the kitchen, I stood in the living room and tossed the towel like a horseshoe over the trap. Using a plastic grocery bag as a glove and averting my eyes, I crept into the kitchen and forced myself to pick up the mouse. Gagging and holding the bag away from my body, I ran with it out to my car. I went back in the house and vacuumed and mopped, removing all traces of the hunt from the floors. After locking the doors, I got in my car and drove south on the Henderson Freeway in search of a trash can, taking the first exit into the parking lot of a local casino. Stuffing the bag with the mouse in my purse, I entered through a revolving glass door to red carpet, stale smoke, ringing slots, and the scent of fake lilac mingled with beer. I had only been to casinos twice since arriving in Las Vegas. Once to have lunch with Jonathan, and once to see an overpriced show about men who wore paint. The local Henderson casino did not have the same panache as the monolith money drops on the Strip, but it did have something that might be called heart, if such a thing could exist in a place where people who couldn't afford to lose money regularly did. At a wicker rotunda, men with white hair slumped together on hard stools playing blackjack. A friendly craps group cheered a short woman crooking her arm to throw dice. A lady with a plastic cup full of quarters cheered on a slot player's every drunk pull. Just beyond the high-limit poker, a portrait-lined hallway led to the restroom where I would certainly find a trash bin. I entered the spacious pink restroom where a trio of big-breasted women applied lipstick and rouge in front of a mother-of-pearl inlaid mirror. Beneath a knockoff Monet, a smoking attendant guarded a heady assortment of perfumes, hairsprays, and gels. I walked towards the chrome trash can in the corner, unzipping my purse. Just as I brought my purse towards the bin, the attendant met my gaze in the mirror, the weight of her reproach lodged in one penciled-on eyebrow. Her knowing look suggested she spent many a night watching women like me dispose of unseemly detritus. In a city like Vegas, there was no limit to what might turn up in the trash. Drugs, loaded guns, body parts, the occasional fetus.
No.
She took an impossibly long drag of her cigarette, her desert-lined skin growing taut beneath permed silver hair. I washed my hands at the sink, styled my bangs with my fingers, and left with the mouse in my purse. In the parking lot, I was approached by a woman dressed in a ball gown begging for change. "Here's $5, I said, removing a bill from my wallet. "Oh, and do me a favor, take this and throw it away." "Well, what is it?" she asked. "A dead mouse." "Oh, hell no," she said, dropping the bag to the ground. "Ain't you got $10? She said as I picked up the bag and walked to my car. "5's kind of cheap." I drove back into the highway and found myself heading away from the city. Mountains crowded with identical homes rose towards the harsh, gloomy sky. When I had reached the real desert, far enough out to no longer see the lights of the strip, I pulled into the first gas station next to a neon sign of a cowboy boot kicking a teepee. Bolstering myself with a breath of night air, I walked to the dumpster at the edge of the parking lot. With a glance at the silver of waning moon, I hoisted the bag, feeling it drop from my hands like a weight. Instead of relief, I felt an odd twinge of sadness. By morning, the mouse would be smashed in a landfill, mingling with paper plates, tin cans, milk cartons, and tires under the glare of the hot desert sun. Ruby had told me live squirrels in Vegas were known to explode from the heat, and I pictured the mouse stiff and baking, crucified. I had not checked the trap to see what its last meal had been. Heading back on the highway, I swerved down curvy roads on my way past Lake Mead. Las Vegas stretched out below, the lights of the strip spilling all the way out to the desert at Red Rock. The beam from the Luxor shot over the mountains, bathing Henderson's one-story clones in a crystalline glow. From a distance, the tableau of mountains and light shone with beauty that faded the closer I got to the city. Back on my street, I cruised past the crackheads in front of Vic's Laundry and jumped as a homeless man stuck his hat out for change. A hooker strolled by with a cane, one foot on high heel, the other encased in a cast. I parked my car under an overhead light, securing the club to my wheel. Inside my apartment, I turned on the light, unplugged my answering machine, and collapsed into bed. Pulling the covers up to my chin, a few minutes later I heard the familiar steps at the door. "Hey, hon!" Twice Jerry did his shave and haircut knock, but I didn't answer. "I know you're in there 'cause your light's on." I lay completely still, not blinking an eye. "My Aunt Beth's in the hospital. Just thought you would know. Hey, I got tickets to the NBA All-Star game. We can go just as friends." He waited a minute, tried the knock again, and then left. The air conditioning from downstairs sounded through my floor with a low rumble that made my dishes and silverware jump. A cockroach ambled across the ceiling with confidence of an athlete. An alarm on a car was wailing nearby, pulsing repeatedly the same 3 shrill notes. I turned out my light, and a few minutes later I heard Jerry's footsteps outside my door again. "Hey, hon!" "I know you're in there. I just saw your light." I took a deep breath, sinking deeper under the covers. "You can't keep hiding," he said in his sing-song. "I'll always know where to find you." My limbs felt like wood, and my nose started twitching. I curled my back forward and tucked in my head, squeezing myself very small. Hugging my feet to my legs, I rolled to the ground, landing soft on all fours, tail flat and nose to the floor. I scurried off towards the AC. Thank you.